I know that you and I are doing our best to engage with our day, do our jobs, take care of our families, fulfill our obligations. But when you have just watched 72 million of your fellow countrymen and women vote to set fire to the Western world, it's hard to focus. And so I thought I would just say out loud what I think a lot of us are feeling quietly. I remember 2016, the unexpected Trump victory felt like an electrical shock. I was so mad. I was so indignant. It motivated me to express every ounce of outrage, verbally, in writing, online. 8 years later, I still feel shock and indignation, but the electricity, not as much. It feels overshadowed by a kind of numb resignation. I just look around. I can't believe it. 70 million Americans looked at the grifter, the predator, the bully, the child, the con, the anti-democracy wannabe king, and they said, yeah, I want that. It is hard not to feel the way that Gore Vidal felt about Western democracy. He wrote these words. He said, as societies grow decadent, the language grows decadent too. Words are used to disguise, not to illuminate action. You liberate a city by destroying it. Words are used to confuse so that at election time, people will solemnly vote against their own interests. You know, today I feel two sensations. First of all, the idea of spending any time in the direct vicinity of family members, friends, associates, people that I bump into in my life. The idea of being in a physical space next to them sickens me, right? The people who voted for an assault on democracy and decency. I just feel resentful. And two, while I will continue to speak to my values, I am also preparing to watch people gleefully destroy the American experiment. You know, this country may well choke to death on the smoke of its own bonfires. And sometimes it feels like all the rest of us can do is put on a gas mask and point garden hoses at the flames. I mean, I still feel like a crusader for what is just, but I also feel like a spectator. You know, I'm standing behind the lead shield in advance of the dirty bomb, hoping people might survive this. My evangelical Trumper associates right now, people that I know personally, they are likely celebrating. It's probably a party. They're high-fiving and thanking Jesus, right? And whatever their intentions may be, maybe they think they are being noble. It's about the abortion debate or something else. Or maybe they bought into the myth of the billionaire genius. Maybe they believe in divine destiny. Whatever. Their glee makes me sick. God's sheep are likely thanking their sweet Lord for bringing unto them a shepherd, and they see these events as destiny, biblical. They have combined the cult of Christianity with the cult of MAGA. All the while, they are discarding the best teachings of Jesus Christ: humility, generosity, charity. Their Bibles say that the love of money is the root of all evil. They worship rich people. Their Bibles say, don't take vengeance. They cheer the guy who says, get even with your enemies.
You have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified.
Their Bibles say to forgive. They admire the guy who holds grudges and threatens the rights of those who criticize. Their Bibles say, do not oppress the foreigner. Meanwhile, they are vilifying immigrants. Their Bible declares in Matthew that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. They love the egomaniac. Their Bibles say not to perform their prayers in public. Go to your quiet room, right? They applaud Christian nationalist prayer theater in the halls of power. Their Bibles say they should commit themselves to serving others, and then They turn around and send their money and give their allegiance and adoration to someone who serves only himself. Self-service seems to be part of the MAGA movement. You and I express real concern, right? Great concern about the rights of women, the rights and the safety and the equality of marginalized groups, minority groups, the victims of atrocities in foreign lands, the cruelty and the bullying and the crazy word salad disinformation that defines most of Trump cult. And these people look at us and what do? They complain about the price of a dozen eggs. For many of these people, immigrants are both lazy leeches who are milking the system without paying any taxes or having any societal responsibility, and they are also hard workers coming to steal their jobs. They're convinced that devil Democrats want to padlock their churches and come into their private homes and confiscate their Bibles and make Christianity illegal, which is crazy because these supposedly persecuted American Christians are the least victimized, persecuted, and endangered demographic in the entire country. They seem to value things based on border lines that were subjectively drawn by people that they don't even know. They hold up their fingers and they say, "We're number one," talking about a nation that fails next to all other developed nations in almost every metric: healthcare, cost of living, education, violent crime, etc. They don't see the whole world because to them the U.S. is the world. And everybody else is somehow less important, less interesting, less valuable. I think it's ironic that we are still called the United States of America. United. Except that we're split in regard to almost every opinion that we have. And sometimes I have this thought. I wonder what might happen if we divided the United States into two separate countries, Nation A and Nation B. So Nation A could discover what MAGA really means: a dictatorship at the mercy of Trump and Vance and the RFKs and the Elons and the demagogues and the oligarchs, the agents of religious and financial privilege, the managers of wombs, the purity police, the school boards who are writing mythology into school curriculums. It could erase or at least airbrush history so lessons from history would not be learned by future generations. Nation A could make scientists the bad guys. It could ignore deadly viruses and reject vaccines. It could choke the planet with unregulated industry. It could pray to the sky against all these afflictions happening on the ground. It could pretend that the rest of the world doesn't even exist or it doesn't matter. Nation A would be an alternate reality. It could be a place where people were finally forced to experience the consequences of ignoring the true reality. And on the other side would be Nation B, and this is where I would like to live. Nation B would return to the original motto of the United States: E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Our diversity would be something to embrace and celebrate. We wouldn't vilify the immigrant. We could disagree and discuss, even argue about things without fear for our rights or our safety or our lives. We could recognize that we are both individuals and we are a community. We could enjoy personal liberties while also embracing collectivist values. We would be both one of us and all of us. We would protect and empower science and scientists. We would use our great advances to inoculate and improve and save people's lives. We could make sure that people had individual rights to be religious. We would fight for their right to be personally religious, but we would also ensure the government never became a church. We'd see ourselves as citizens of America, but also citizens of the world. Everybody a part of the human condition. We are all brothers and sisters. We take better care of our environment, serving the planet that has served us. We would teach our history without airbrushing or erasing it. We would be honest about what our country has been and what it's done for better and worse to help educate and inform the future. We'd celebrate success without allowing the oligarchs and the hoarders. We would elect an accountable president and not a king. And I wonder how these two nations would fare against each other. You have to wonder, would Nation A come knocking on the doors of Nation B, begging for equal rights that they had eventually lost, begging for medicines that they had previously thrown in the trash can? Give me a vaccine, give me prevention, give me a cure. They would beg for cleaner air and water. They would beg for safe haven against bigots. They would beg for teachers instead of preachers. They would beg for leaders that didn't act like gods. Questions like these, scenarios like these, realities like these, they are why we should seriously be teaching our history. You and I know that the historians of the future are going to look back at the United States today, and they're going to look at us much the same way that some of the rest of the world is looking at us right now. They're going to say, what the hell happened? And for my part, while I do feel real despair, I'm going to try not to look at the headlines as much as I look at the people. Tens of millions of people voted for authoritarianism, corruption, grift, oppression, division, hatred. I'm going to try to remember them, but I'm also going to remember the tens of millions that resisted. And I refuse to do what MAGA culture wants me to do, give up and let them operate unchecked and uncriticized. They want us to check out, all right? Because if we check out, then Nation A becomes Nation A and B. Standing against the threat is the only hope we've got of somehow salvaging what the United States was supposed to be. The agents of harm must be confronted by the advocates for humanity. And even if this country self-destructs all around us, we can hold our heads up and say that we never gave up, we never stopped fighting, we never surrendered our values, our humanity. We can say proudly that our conscience is clean. Let's work together to make sure historians also remember that.